Hello everyone, I'm Weston's Otherwise, and in today's video we break down the upcoming severe weather coming to the United States and just diving right into things. We have a day 1 enhanced risk of severe weather across portions of Nebraska, and we have a large slight risk outside of it. That's not the only thing. Another slight risk here in Wyoming, and nope, that's not it. Slight risk in Nevada, Utah, Wyoming, and Idaho. Large marginal risk surrounds that anywhere from portions of Michigan back into portions of Kansas and Wyoming, into portions of Nevada and Montana. And we do actually have another marginal risk down here in portions of Arizona. Now, today we do actually have a 2% tornado potential in two different areas, one up here in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Minnesota, and another here in South Dakota and portions of Nebraska. I do think a bit more of an elevated tornado threat may happen down here in portions of Nebraska and South Dakota, but overall nothing too crazy. We do actually have a 30% hatched wind risk. We could see some winds exceed 75 miles an hour today, and we could see some hailstones up to around golf balls. Moving on to tomorrow, we have two separate risk areas. We have a slight risk in portions of Wisconsin and Illinois, and another one back here in portions of Nebraska, Colorado, and Wyoming. We have a very large marginal risk from portions of New York back into Michigan, into portions of New Mexico and Colorado. So very large risk, but we do actually have two separate 2% tornado risks again here, you can tell. One back here in portions of Wyoming and Colorado, and then another one back here in Wisconsin and Illinois. And I do actually think a bit more elevated tornado threat may occur back here in Colorado, mainly towards our more northeastern half. But overall, we shouldn't see anything too crazy tornado-wise. Wind-wise, we could see some winds up to around 70 miles an hour tomorrow. And then we actually could see some hailstones around golf ball size. I do actually think that we may get a small hatched risk back here towards Denver, but overall, not too intense tomorrow. Moving on to our day 3 outlook, we have a marginal risk extending from portions of Maine back into portions of Ohio, and this does include all of Pennsylvania and New York, so pretty large population areas in there. But overall, I don't think anything too crazy will happen. I do actually think a slight risk will be added across that area, and maybe up here in Maine too. But we're just going to have to watch it closely, and we'll update you as we go. Here's what radar could look like tonight. We could see storms fire within the next hour. And whenever they first fire, if they're able to be discreet, we actually could see that tornado threat be a bit higher than what the SPC has highlighted. But overall, it does look more like a damaging wind threat, especially here in Nebraska, as this tries to march to the southeastward, east-southeast, before really falling apart pretty fast. And I do actually have this custom overlay I made. This is for Nebraska, the severe threat, Tuesday evening/night. So I have our tornado risk at a 2, our wind gust at a 6, our hail threat at around a 4, and our flooding at a 3. Now shifting it east for today, what we could expect, you can expect a few cells to fire here. You can tell they're kind of ongoing right now. But you can expect back here, maybe even in Arkansas, a few storms to fire and push to the northeast, which may produce some marginally severe stuff. But overall, nothing too crazy tonight. And moving it west, here's what you could expect here in portions like Idaho. And I did not put this on 19Z, pardon me for that. Overall, does not look too intense. We may see some gusty winds here in the next couple of hours across this area, but honestly, it does look like a bit of a low-end threat. Now, moving on to tomorrow, here we are, start of Wednesday. You can tell our storms are ongoing, and they're going to continue to push out. And then we're going to see storms go up right around 5 o'clock Mountain Daylight Time in portions of Colorado and Wyoming. And then I do want to point out here, we may actually see a slight risk issued across this area too. So we may see like our slight risk across portions of this area, just because it does look like we may have a decently intense line pushed to the southeast for about an hour. And then just heavy rain and some gusty winds a bit farther to the east in portions of Kansas and Missouri. And then here on the East Coast and in portions of Ohio, what you could expect. You can see here, storms tomorrow are going to go up. And I honestly would not rule out a isolated tornado potential out of some of these storms. It's a very low-end threat, but if any storm can stay discreet, I would not rule out a brief tornado or two in Ohio or Pennsylvania. Moving on to the GFS, and this is going to be the jet stream, and we're actually going to enter a ring of fire weather pattern. And yes, it does sound scary, but it really is not as intense as it sounds. So moving forward here, we're going to have our we're going to have our jet stream lifted very far to the north. And as you can tell, moving forward, it does look to stay to the north. And with that happening, that means we're going to see high pressure build across this area, which is going to limit storms across this area. And so we're going to have a lot of systems that are going to kind of just track off like this. We might actually have a few systems come in through Canada, which actually could bring the chance for a derecho, but we're way too far out to forecast that. But this is one of those systems. It's coming out of Canada, and it's going to try and push to the east-southeast, and if it can get that southeasterly flow, it definitely could pose some big-time problems. But as you can tell here, even heading into the beginning of August, our jet stream is going to stay lifted extremely far to the north. Though I will say here, right at the end of the run, hour 384, it does look like we may actually finally be seeing our jet stream lift or drop farther to the south, and this could begin the start of our fall severe weather season in the central and southern plains. And radar would agree with that. If we go ahead and look here, you can tell not very many events back there in the plains, especially the central and southern plains, more events in the northern plains into the Midwest and Ohio Valley. And there's that one system, and you can tell pretty intense line there. Now, it does not track like super far, but it does look intense, so that is definitely a day to watch. We're definitely going to be watching it for you and always update you on the latest. And here's the European model, and it is showing the same thing. Jet stream lifted extremely far off to the north, and it does not look like it is going to drop south within the next week. And radar would agree with that on the European model, as we can tell here. Not very many systems in the southern plains, more in the Midwest, northern plains, and Ohio Valley. Though I do want to say something that we have to watch is next Monday, this system here may try and push to the southeast and may bring some severe potential across this area. We're going to watch it closely. And here's the current tropical hazards. We do actually have a 40% chance of development in the next 2 and 7 days. Now, I do think this could be a low-end tropical storm, and it may actually impact Louisiana, Mississippi, and even up into Arkansas maybe. And it could impact Florida, but it would most likely impact the western half of Florida. And here's the GFS model on that. You can tell it does not have it developing a low pressure system. And if we go ahead and head over to the Euro, it also does not show it developing a low pressure system. But a model that I don't usually show you does. And this is the Icon model. And you can tell here, this is actually like right now, it has not developed a low pressure system. I'm telling you that now. It has not. But moving forward, it's going to try a couple times. And here you can tell it tries to head up through Louisiana. So definitely going to watch that closely. And last thing before we end off here, we're only 32 subs from 1,000. So please like and subscribe if you are new here, and I will see you in the next one.